just want to make 2 points, really. I think the first thing I want to say is put this in a bit of context, in the sense that this is the latest in a very long line of reforms of the public sector, and specifically the higher education sector. Go all the way back to 1992, Further and Higher Education Act 1992, funding body was created, universities were funded on the students that they took in individually, with the view to start creating the grounds for marketisation and competition. We had in 1996 of reports commissioned into the funding and sustainability of the higher education sector under the Conservative government of the mid-90s, followed straight into the new Labour government in 1998, introducing tuition fees on the back of that report. In 2001, we had a Labour government, a manifesto pledge. We will not introduce top-up fees, and have legislated against them. 2001 manifesto. We can imagine what happened next. First thing they do, not the first thing they do, but very shortly afterwards, they introduced £3,000 tuition fees, or top-up fees as they were called then. Move that forward, report commissioned this time by the Labour government, the Lord Brown report, leads very quickly into the introduction of £9 fees in 2010. And again, on the back of an outrageous betrayal of students, really. You know, we had a politician signing a personal pledge with the NUS, with students, getting hundreds of thousands of votes from students. And one of the first things they do, literally within a few weeks of coming into government, is, as you expect, they introduce £9,000 fees. So I think this is the latest in a long line of reforms that is marketising and commodifying education. Very similar set of reforms in the healthcare sector. Trace that back to the NHS Community Care Act in 1990, introduction of the purchase provider model and competition in the health service. And this is ongoing. So the TEF is the latest in these rounds of reforms. And one of the major reasons they're introducing the TEF now is because in the last Liberal Tory governments, they wanted to sell off and privatise the student loan book, but they couldn't. One of the major reasons that they couldn't was because now about 45 pence in every pound of new loans is actually recoverable. I've got the figures from a couple of years ago. 33.3 billion is expected to be recovered in real terms against the total outstanding student loan debt of 54 billion. So what the TEF is trying to do is it's trying to link the education sector with employability and bring employability and graduate earnings into the heart of the very definition of teaching and good teaching. So it's trying to redefine teaching in the interests of the system. So we've had the political consensus of all of the ruling parties, the Liberal Democrats, the Conservatives, Labour. They've all been on the same side, and they've been implementing these reforms consistently, and every one of those three has been in government while we've been seeing these reforms implemented. So I would say the TEF is very dangerous because it is redefining, and the only thing I'd add really to Justin's points, and I agree with everything he said about the nature of the TEF and why it's very problematic as a measure. The only thing I'd add to that, in that same Institute for Fiscal Studies report, they actually model the earnings data based on HMRC databases to look at, well, which subjects would win and benefit and which subjects would lose out under the TEF, and they rank them. And just as you can imagine, you know, it's the arts and humanities, it's philosophy, it's languages that are losing out, and it's the vocational subjects, it's engineering, medicine, business, and law that benefit from the TEF. So it's a fundamental redesign of the system in the interests of the economics, really. So I think as students we have to be very opposed to that. We also have to understand that we're working within a system in which there is a political consensus for all of this to be happening.